The myth of the deep thinker. When thought pretends to be depth, everybody wants to be a deep thinker. It sounds noble. It sounds mysterious. It sounds like the secret club of those who stare into the abyss and come back with wisdom dripping off their eyelashes. The illusion of depth. Let's talk about this word, deep. Deep in what, though? Deep in a dream? Deep in a loop? Depth is just the illusion of dimension projected onto what has none. The ocean thinks it's deep until it remembers it has no bottom. You can't measure the immeasurable. And yet that's what thinking tries to do. Stack more thought on top of thought and call it discovery. The Course puts it bluntly, nothing real can be increased and nothing unreal exists. So how can you go deeper into what was never real? You can only go deeper into sleep. We live in a culture that worships analysis, the slicing, the dissecting, the rearranging of shadows. People say, I like to get deep. But depth implies there's something under the surface worth diving for. In spirit, there's nothing to dig up. Truth isn't buried. It's simply ignored. The truth is true, and nothing else is true. That's not deep. That's the end of deep. Because when truth dawns, all concepts collapse, including depth itself. But here's the cosmic joke. There is no abyss. And the only one impressed by the depth of thought is the thought itself. I'm a deep thinker, says the thought about itself. But who's doing the thinking? Have you ever noticed thoughts just show up uninvited? You didn't order them. You didn't cook them. You just keep eating what's already been served and calling it gourmet. That's not depth, that's habit. The Course says, you think with the brain, yet the brain does not think. That one line detonates the entire mythology of the deep thinker. Because if the brain doesn't think, then who's the thinker? The ego whispers, it's me. But the ego is just another thought pretending to be the manager of thoughts. It's the dream hiring itself to run the dream factory. Who's doing the thinking? Let's get surgical for a second. Thoughts arise. You notice them. Then a voice in your head says, I'm thinking. But who told you that voice was you? The moment you claim authorship, you sign the lease on suffering. The Course says, you are not the thinker of your thoughts. That's the beginning of freedom. Because the thinker, the one who takes credit or blame, is the dream character, not the dreamer. The self doesn't think, it knows. It doesn't analyze, it is. Being doesn't need commentary. Only the ego narrates its own existence because it secretly doubts it has any. So it keeps talking, keeps labeling, keeps calling that noise depth. Imagine you're watching a movie, and one of the characters stands up in the middle of the scene and starts giving film reviews about the film they're in. That's the deep thinker. They're reviewing a dream, inside the dream. Default settings and thermostats of the mind. Another popular phrase from the deep thinker's toolbox is, it's my default setting. Sounds smart. Sounds like you've debugged your soul. But spirit doesn't have settings. That's a thermostat problem, not a consciousness problem. Spirit isn't programmable. It's timeless. It can't be upgraded because it was never downgraded. The Course says, you are at home in God, dreaming of exile, but perfectly capable of awakening to reality. That's not a software update. That's a jailbreak. You can't set peace. Peace is what's left when the settings disappear. Stillness doesn't toggle between options. It just is. The costume called Deep Thinker. The Deep Thinker identity is one of the ego's favorite disguises. It feels sophisticated, smarter than the shallow crowd, more aware than the average dreamer. It's spiritual pride in academic robes. The Course calls it the ego's plan for salvation, which always involves being special in some way. Smarter, deeper, more insightful. But the ego doesn't want salvation. It wants admiration. It doesn't want stillness. It wants to be the one who found it. "I think, therefore I am," said Descartes. And the Holy Spirit gently replies, "No, you think, therefore you're confused. Being doesn't think. Being is." It's the same difference between talking about the ocean and drowning in it. Thoughts about depth are not depth. They're just ripples. And ripples aren't the water. They're movement pretending to have meaning. The effortless effort. Another ego flex. It's effortless. And yet someone is always taking credit for that effortlessness. The one saying, "I didn't even try," is still trying to prove something. The Course says, the ego asks many questions it cannot answer. And that's the whole game. Pretend to be at peace while secretly grading your performance. Truth doesn't need defending. Silence doesn't flex. Awareness doesn't brag. God isn't impressed by GPA in illusion. When something is truly effortless, there's no you left to report it. Only being remains. It's not that peace takes no effort, it's that effort itself was never real. What's effortless about awareness is that it's already done. It's not becoming peaceful, it is peace. Nobody can take it there with me. The classic loner badge of the deep thinker. Nobody can take it there with me. Well, maybe because there doesn't exist. You can't go deep into what's not real. There's no down in a hologram. Everything you see, every idea, every image, is light pretending to be space. And when you stop pretending, you don't need to go anywhere. You're already home. The Course says, "Seek not outside yourself. The kingdom of heaven is within you." So if heaven is within, where exactly are you taking it? Depth is just direction applied to formlessness. The Holy Spirit isn't trying to take you down. He's trying to wake you up. What most people call boredom is spirit yawning at another rerun of the same thought. You're not bored. You're just tired of watching the same episode of me over and over. The thinker is the dream. Deep thinkers always forget the punchline. The thinker itself is the dream. The one doing all that analysis is an echo arguing with itself. You can't outthink thought any more than a wave can surf itself. The Course says, the world you see is the witness to your state of mind. If your world looks chaotic, it's because your thinking is. And if your world looks deep, that's just the ego flattering itself. When you realize the thinker is the dream, you stop asking, "What's the meaning of life?" and start laughing. Because life doesn't need meaning, only illusions do. Meaning is the ego's attempt to make the unreal matter. The truth doesn't need to be meaningful, it needs to be remembered. Stillness over depth. The moment you declare it's already deep, the light went out. That's the paradox. Truth isn't measured by how far you can think, it's revealed by how still you can be. Still water doesn't brag about how reflective it is. It just reflects. And the Course says, "Be still and know that I am God." Not be deep. Not be clever. Just be still. Because only stillness reveals reality. Deep thinking is just shallow silence disguised as sophistication. Most thoughts are emotional Wi-Fi signals pinging for attention. When you stop logging in, peace stops being deep. It just is. That's the joke the ego never gets. Reality doesn't need effort. It's the mind's addiction to effort that keeps it from noticing how easy this is. Beyond thought entirely. You say you want people who can take it there. But the only place worth going is beyond thought entirely. That's not deep, that's awake. Everything else is scuba diving in a puddle and calling it enlightenment. The Course says, truth is simple because it is one. And that's the ultimate insult to the deep thinker, simplicity. Because simplicity kills the ego's entire business model. There's nothing to figure out. Nothing to prove, nothing to defend, only to remember. The true self doesn't think. It sees. It loves. It extends. It doesn't analyze. It recognizes. And recognition ends the need for depth. So maybe the real deep thinker isn't the one who can swim through ideas, but the one who can sit in silence without drowning. Because silence isn't empty. It's full of everything the ego tried to replace with thought. As the Course reminds, heaven is not a place nor a condition. It is merely an awareness of perfect oneness. And you don't get there by thinking about it. You get there by unthinking everything that says you're not already home. So next time someone says, "I'm a deep thinker," smile. They're just a puddle pretending to be the ocean. And that's okay. Because when the puddle evaporates, the ocean is all that's left.